We bridge science, nutrition, and functional medicine to help you heal from the inside out. I'm Kim Larson. I'm a certified functional nutrition coach. I'm a Fast Like a Girl coach, and I'm founder of Larson Health Weight Loss, larsonnutrition.com, and larsonbotanicals.com. Here we talk about real health transformation, how food, fasting, and lifestyle can change your hormones, your metabolism, and longevity. Give me 1 second. I want to make sure that I have the noise quieted down. Today, I want to talk more about fasting. I know that we just did a 3-day water fast, and I want to talk a little bit more about the science behind this, right? So, what we're talking about is like the biological rhythm the human body evolved with, right? And still expects because for thousands of years we fasted. And there's also research into what, different religions do with fasting. So, water fasting often gets framed as like it's extreme, but that framing collapses when you look at human physiology through an evolutionary lens. There was a major review published in Cell Metabolism in 2018 that explained this clearly. The authors described fasting not as a stressor, but as a conserved metabolic state, meaning humans evolved specific biological pathways to function during periods without food. In other words, constant eating is the abnormal condition, not fasting. Fasting is the normal condition, right? If you think about our ancestors, right? They didn't have refrigerators. They didn't have fast food restaurants around the corner that you could drive to. They didn't have Uber Eats that would deliver to your house. They were on their feet to hunt, to gather, berries or vegetables or anything they could find growing from the ground that they could consume. Or animal meats, they'd have to hunt for, right? They'd have to go find it. So, for most of human history, food was seasonal and unpredictable, right? So, in the wintertime, if you're in the winter, right, there's nothing you're pulling out of the ground necessarily. They didn't have like, hoops and uh, you know, greenhouses and all that jazz, right? They had to eat what was seasonal. So, it's probably predominantly, unless you're in a warm area, predominantly meat that you're eating. Humans didn't wake up knowing 3 meals and snacks were guaranteed, right? I mean, I don't know where this all came from that we should be eating 5 times a day and we should have a meal, then we should have a snack, then we should have a meal, then we should have a snack, then we should have a meal. This is ridiculous. I don't know who made up this crap. Maybe it's the food industry who made it up. I didn't look in the history of this, but that is not how we used to eat, and it's not how our bodies are built. The body learned how to manage energy internally. This is where modern research and ancestral biology meet. So, at the center of fasting physiology is metabolic flexibility. That's where you can go in and out between fat burning and using ketones. So, a 2019 paper published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism showed that individuals with poor metabolic flexibility, meaning they struggle to shift between glucose and fat burning. Sorry, I said ketones, from glucose to fat burning. So, meaning that your body will live on glucose for a little while and then it goes into fasting mode and it's in fat burning. It also shows that higher insulin levels create greater fat storage and increased risk for metabolic disease. And this is true in both men and women. So, water fasting creates a metabolic window where insulin can fall long enough for this flexibility to be restored. And this matters because insulin's not just a blood sugar hormone, it's a storage hormone. When insulin stays elevated all day, fat cannot be accessed efficiently. This was there was a controlled human study out of the National Institutes of Health showing that during fasting, insulin levels rapidly dropped allowing fat cells to release stored energy. And what's fascinating is that this happens even when total calorie intake over time is similar. That tells us that fasting works not simply because people eat less, but because insulin signaling is allowed to reset. Our guts, it's amazing. If you take antibiotics, if you've been on the pill for years, if you are eating processed foods, if you're drinking sodas all the time or things out of a can, these things rip at the lining of your gut. And when that happens and then you eat and then you all of a sudden like have a swollen belly or aches and pains in your belly, this is because you have a torn um, gut lining. And what happens when that goes on is that you actually have food leaking in through those tears in your gut lining. So it's amazing what you can do with a 3-day water fast or even a 48-hour fast, water fast with electrolytes, because that can help reset your gut. And then the proper refeeding of doing some bone broth, which will help coat the lining of your stomach. And then you do some probiotics, which also helps line the gut of your line the coat the lining of your gut, like kefir or sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is amazing, right? Or kombucha, but it's really difficult to find a low sugar kombucha. So it's much safer to go with something like sauerkraut or with kefir, which is low sugar. You can find organic. So before I go any further, I want to pause for a moment and talk about something that often gets overlooked when we talk about fasting and metabolic healing. And that's what we're putting on our bodies into our environment, right? So when you fast, digestion quiets, insulin drops, and the body becomes more sensitive, not weaker, just more perceptive. That means things like synthetic fragrances, endocrine disruptors, and chemical skincare matter more, not less. And that's why exactly I created Larson Botanicals, right? So Larson Botanicals is my line of hormone supporting skincare and candles, all made with certified organic ingredients and without synthetic fragrances, no hormone disruptors, or inflammatory fillers. These are products designed to support your body while it's doing deep internal repair, not add to its workload. So if you're fasting, healing, or simply trying to reduce your toxic burden, this is one of the easiest places to start. You can find everything at larsonbotanicals.com. There's skincare and candles designed to work with your biology and not against it. So from an ancestral standpoint, this is exactly what the body, expects. Early fasting uses circulating glucose, then the liver glycogen. So once glycogen is depleted, typically between 24 to 36 hours, insulin falls further and fat oxidation increases dramatically. This is also where ketones come in. And ketones are amazing for our brains. There was a series of studies published in the Journal of Lipid Research showing that beta hydroxybutyrate, the primary ketone produced during fasting, is not just a fuel source, it's a signaling molecule. It reduces oxidative stress, it dampens inflammatory pathways, and it improves mitochondrial efficiency. That's why so many people report mental clarity during extended fasting, like a 3-day fast. You have these ketones that are going up. You have autophagy going on, cleaning out all the dead skin cells. Your body is repairing itself. You have stem cells coming in and repairing everything, like your gut lining. And this is not a coincidence. It's the design of our history and bodies, right? This is the evolution of the human body and is the most natural way to eat for our bodies. I don't know if you have seen the image of humans riding a cloud. That it's like a bed, and there's somebody just munching and munching, and they're obese, right? and everyone that's floating around in these beds is obese. They're just eating whatever they want to eat. The food is on demand. So when food is on demand like this, and we don't get movement, like we're just eating in bed and just glutton, right? This is just a glutton for punishment. It's where we start to pack on the fat from not moving and just eating constantly. So early humans needed to think clearly during food scarcity, right? Cognitive function couldn't just shut down because food wasn't available. Ketones provided a stable, efficient fuel for the brain and preserving focus and decision making. This biological reality helps explain why fasting appears across nearly every religious tradition. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, and all independently integrated fasting into spiritual practice, right? So this wasn't just like all of a sudden random or one talked to the other and said, "Hey, you should do this fasting." They all do it, right? Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, all independently integrated fasting into spiritual practice. And what's interesting is that modern science now explains what these traditions observed intuitively. There were multiple observational studies published in nutrition reviews and the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition examining Ramadan fasting. Researchers consistently found improvements in insulin sensitivity, lipid profiles, inflammatory markers like C reactive protein, and even mental well being, often without significant calorie reduction. The key factor wasn't deprivation. It was this rhythm of fasting and having a meal, fasting, having a light meal, right? And specifying what they could eat. So I also want to remind you that that healing isn't just about food, right? It's about the environment your nervous system is living in. When we talk about lowering inflammation and supporting metabolic repair, that includes reducing constant low grade stress signals. And one of the biggest ones most people don't realize is fragrance in skincare and candles, those plugins in your home, maybe the things that you put on your light bulbs that it emits fragrances, the colognes we wear, the perfumed body lotions, right? The even clean labeled products sometimes have these perfumes in them. That's why Larson Botanicals exists. Everything I create is intentionally simple, organic, and hormone safe because your skin is an organ. And what you put on it communicates directly with your endocrine and nervous systems. If you're creating space for healing through fasting or lifestyle changes, this is a beautiful way to support that process gently. You can explore the full collection at larsonbotanicals.com. So let's walk through what actually happens during a multi day water fast. During the first 24 hours, hunger is largely driven by ghrelin, that's your hunger hormone, which rises and falls in predictable waves, regardless of food intake, especially if you were somebody who is eating constantly, right? Your brain is going to be like, I got to eat, I got to eat. Drink some water, take a deep breath, wait about 20 minutes, it will pass. A study published in Obesity Research showed that ghrelin does not continue to rise endlessly during fasting. Instead, it peaks and it falls. It peaks and it falls, which explains why hunger often eases actually after the first 24 hours. So between 24 and 36 hours, your liver glycogen becomes depleted. So there's no more like sugar left in the body for your body to use as fuel. And this is where fat oxidation increases significantly. A metabolic chamber study out of the University of Copenhagen showed a marked shift toward fat derived energy during this window, even at rest, right? So even if you're not going for a walk, if you're sleeping, even if you're just sleeping, the fat derived energy during this window really kind of ramps up. And from 36 to 48 hours, ketones rise sharply. Research from NIH demonstrated that during this phase, the brain derives a substantial portion of its energy from ketones. And ketones are amazing for your brain. It reduces reliance on glucose and it stabilizes the neural activity. And then between 48 and 72 hours, your fasting metabolism is fully established. Insulin remains low, fat oxidation remains high, autophagy increases and maxes out at 72 hours. This process was famously described as Yoshinori Osumi, whose work on autophagy earned a Nobel Prize. His research showed that autophagy plays a critical role in cellular repair, as well as immune regulation and metabolic health. There was also a well-known study published in Science Translational Medicine showing that periodic prolonged fasting improved markers of aging, insulin resistance, inflammation, and cardiovascular risk factors in both men and women. Now, let me share about muscle because this is where fear often enters the conversation, right? Research using a DEXA scan shows that some lean mass loss occurs during prolonged fasting, but much of this reflects water and glycogen depletion rather than true muscle tissue loss. As ketones rise, muscle protein breakdown decreases. A study published in Clinical Nutrition demonstrated that ketones exert a muscle sparing effect, particularly when fasting is followed by adequate protein intake and resistance training. Even if you're doing a body weight exercise like yoga, or you're doing some squats within your chair, or just some air squats, maybe you add in some 5-pound weights, add in a couple of cans of whatever you have, and your hands, if you don't have weights at home, grab the biggest cans you have and use those for weights. I mean, there's so much that you can do, right? If you're doing a plank, that's using your body weight. If you're doing a star pose, if you're doing a push up, if you're doing a sit up, if you're doing leg lifts, right? This is all your own body weight. And all of that helps. It does help to when you start lifting to do your body weight, but then also start graduating into more resistance, heavier weights. You're not gonna get bulked up, you're not gonna get bigger, trust me on that. You'll just lean out because muscle burns fat 24/7, whereas fat doesn't burn anything, but fasting does help you burn some fat. So men and women can experience fasting differently due to a hormonal context, right? Because women have different hormones or more of certain hormones than men. So, review in obesity reviews emphasize that women benefit most from cyclical fasting rather than chronic restriction. Now, that depends on whether you're actually getting still your period or if you're postmenopause. So, when fasting is paired with proper refeeding, thyroid and reproductive hormones remain stable. Light movement during fasting supports fat oxidation and circulation. So, going for a walk, going for 20-minute walk, or, going for a 2-mile walk. Anything that you can do, go for a hike, go for anything that's light. You can go for restorative yoga, session. You don't wanna work out too hard during a fast, because you'll cause more stress on your body. So studies using indirect calorie metry calorimetry show I'm trying to remember how I pronounce this, calorimetry, show that walking increases fat utilization without raising glucose demand, right? So using that indirect walking to increase fat utilization and it doesn't increase your glucose demand, right? Intense exercise, however, is better placed in the fed state, right? Where you're eating. Black coffee, and this is caffeinated coffee, and plain tea do not significantly raise insulin. Several metabolic studies show they may actually enhance fat mobilization during fasting. And electrolytes are essential for nerve and muscle function and do not break a fast metabolically. Now, there's also something called dry fasting, and this appears in some traditions, but there's not enough clinical research on it, so it's very limited. But water fasting remains the safest and most studied approach. So I've heard of dry fasting. Now, dry fasting is more like you don't even brush your teeth, you don't shower, you don't drink any water, you don't wash your hands, you avoid all water. So that's a true 24-hour dry fast. And I've only heard of people doing it for 24 hours. But you literally avoid everything, not brushing your teeth, not doing anything. And this is supposed to be a true, really helpful fast for your body, but everybody needs water. So environment matters also during fasting with digestion quieting, the body becomes more sensitive to stressors, right? Research in psychoneuroimmunology shows that emotional and environmental stress can actually influence your inflammatory signaling more strongly than lower input states. This is also where reducing chemical exposure matters. So, simplifying your skincare and your home environment reduces the body's workload during fasting. As I'm sharing all this research with you, I want to be really clear about something. Fasting is powerful, but it works best when it's done with education, intention, and proper refeeding. That's the foundation of Larson Nutrition. Larson Nutrition is where I teach people how to use tools like fasting, nutrition timing, protein intake, and lifestyle alignment in a way that actually supports hormones, your metabolism, and long term health, especially for women in midlife, but for men also. So, this isn't about extremes, it's about understanding your biology and working with it. If you're ready to learn how to fast, refuel, and live in a way that restores metabolic health instead of, fighting your body, you can find programs and resources at larsonnutrition.com. So refeeding is not the end of fasting, it's the continuation of your fasting. Studies show that gradual refeeding supports insulin stability and reinforces metabolic gains. So fasting is not about control, it's about trust. The human body is truly adaptive and adjustable. It's intelligent and it's resilient. So when fasting is used intentionally and cyclically, it allows the body to do what it was designed to do. So it's really important to listen to your body. Like if you have like Dr. Mindy Pels went through a 5-day water fast and she had something going on with her Achilles. And she was going through physical therapy, she was going through all kinds of care, and she was still having pain and problems with her Achilles. Well, she went through this 5-day water fast, and literally the pain went away. No more problems with it. Her body repaired itself. This is what's so magical about fasting, is that your body can repair itself with 3-day, 4-day, 5-day water fast. You gotta have the electrolytes in there. But it's amazing, to see this throughout the history of humankind, whether you were in caveman days or whether you're following Ramadan or other fasts, right? There's also, in Christianity, there's some fasts that go on for a 21-day, fast. So it's interesting what you learn when you start looking at, how you do these fasts. Now, I think when I see these 21-day fasts, they're not just a water fast. They might only eat when sun is down, and I don't remember. I don't know actually all of the different what the different religions do, but I'll talk about it in another podcast. I'll do some more research on that and go into that. But it's interesting to see what happens with our bodies and how they repair themselves. So I have done up to a 3-day water fast, and it's amazing what it does to help my body. I lose fat. I lean out. My brain gets sharper and clearer. I refuel the right way. I eat clean. Look at my skin, right? My skin looks great. I'm 57 years old. I eat clean. I didn't always look this good. Trust me, I did not. It was because I started eating clean. It's because I started eating doing fasting. When I was eating, pizza and cookie dough and right out of the tub, or putting it in the oven and fresh baked right out of the plastic tub of cookie dough, right? Not making a gluten-free type thing. I started getting arthritis, high blood pressure, high triglycerides. I was 198 pounds. I was so big. My brother said I looked like a linebacker. So this is where a lot of us just start getting so big, and we think that we can't turn this around. But it's taking one step at a time. How do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time, right? You got to look at it as something to repair your body slowly and be patient, right? It doesn't just happen overnight. But there are so many Americans that are so obese, so overweight, and they have no idea how to get to a healthy place. This is where fasting really comes in to help. Also, eating clean, not eating donuts and cookies and cakes, and having your body driven by sugar. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine. I want to make sure you hear that. Sugar is more addictive than cocaine. Okay. So when you have sugar, you want more sugar, you want more sugar, you want more sugar. It's addictive. And the next thing you know, you have so many sugary items in your life. And I've been trying to tell my family members who have so much pain, stop eating gluten. It's not that you have a celiac disease or maybe even dairy. Conventional dairy has hormones and all kinds of chemicals in it. Our bread is sprayed with glyphosate. Our wheat is sprayed with glyphosate. This stuff is so toxic to our bodies. These are chemicals. Our government is not protecting us. The FDA is not protecting us. I'm glad to see that they have changed the food pyramid so that protein and fat is at the top and grains are at the bottom, right? Because if you eat this way, which is how our ancestors ate, our ancestors didn't have bread. They didn't have, grains like that. They didn't have anything, a baking oven. They didn't have this kind of stuff. They had fire. They could, cook their meat. But you got to think about how our ancestors ate, right? They could maybe pick some berries, they could maybe pick some vegetables that were growing, or some lettuce, maybe, or some whatever. I mean, food that we have today is nothing like what our ancestors ate other than meat, right? We didn't have, obviously, we don't have mammoths or these different animals that were dinosaurs, but we have our own meat, and getting it from a whole, grass fed, it's not corn fed. Problem with corn fed is they make the cows really big, and the corn is also genetically modified. I mean, we don't even know all of the history of what is happening with all these genetically modified foods, right? This is a science experiment happening now. But what happens with the genetically modified seeds is they are created to take the chemicals and not die. So they can take the insect, competing with killing the insects, killing the bugs, right? Killing the disease that might grow on plants, killing the insecticides and the weed killers, right? They survive all of that. But what that means to you is that you get all of those chemicals. You get the insecticide, you get the weed killer, and it's all over corn, soy, and wheat. Even wheat, they pull it off and they spray it to process it faster, right? Because they want to get that gluten out of there. They want to get that chew out of there. So they spray it with more chemicals to make it palatable right away so they can use it right away, because they don't have time. They got to get it to market right away, right? Because the consumer wants it now. They want that bread, right? And this bread is so toxic. Doritos, Cheetos, I mean, all the chemical colors on this. They're trying to change this, but they've pushed it out. I don't know why so long, because I can tell you that Canada and the Europe and European countries, they do not take the same colors that we do. Red dye number 40 and blue dyes and yellow dyes. These dyes are chemical components to our health. So M&Ms have all these bright colors and they put brighteners in them that are more chemicals. I mean, it's just so many toxins in our bodies. And you need to start transitioning to whole foods. If you can buy organic, great. If you can grow it in your backyard, perfect. Right? It really matters to get your own food that's healthier. I don't have a backyard, but I have a bunch of planters. I bought these big planters. They're probably 2.5 feet deep by about 4 feet wide. And I own one, two, three, five of them. And I grow my own lettuces, my own onions. I grow my own strawberries, my own blueberries, raspberries, blackberries. And these are all organic. I buy the organic seeds and I grow 'em myself. Now, I can tell you that I've got some, I don't know if you can see them. Well, you might not be able to see them back there, but that right there is strawberries growing. They are ever-bearing strawberries. So I have strawberries on them, and that's amazing. So I want to share with you that you can get to a better place. And I'm going to put I've got some organic berry food that I'm going to put in them so I can get some more berries off of them. But I can have strawberries during the winter, right? I just bring them in, and I've got two plants there actually. So I've got this one here, and then there's another one up here, and they've got strawberries growing. This ficus tree I've had since I was 24 years old. I've had this tree thing forever. I love my ficus tree. I hug it sometimes. Anyway, I'm just trying to help you guys. If you ever want any help, I have so much knowledge to share with you, and there's so many different avenues I can talk about. But if you want one-on-one coaching, reach out to me. I'm happy to help. I love helping people get to a healthier place. I've helped hundreds, thousands of people get to a better place. You see the images that I'm posting on social media. You see the posts that I put out there to help people learn about this knowledge. My podcast, I share so much knowledge to help you guys learn how to get to a better place. You could do it on your own, or you can reach out to me and I can help you. People who use a coach are 80% more successful than doing it by themselves. But there are people out there, 20%, who can do it by themselves and they are very successful. You can listen to the Larson Health Podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can watch the full episode on YouTube, and you can watch snippets on LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, where I share behind the scenes clips, recipes, and bonus insights from my coaching practice. And if you're ready to take your health to the next level, visit larsonnutrition.com to learn about my personalized programs, hormone supportive meal plans, and one-on-one functional nutrition coaching. And if you're looking for gifts or you're looking for better care for your skin, this has made a difference on my skin to use Larson Botanical skincare. I did a whole bunch of homework trying to find these organic ingredients, and now I'm gonna make a face wash that is going to be all organic ingredients or non-toxic ingredients. Unfortunately, when you get into a face wash, you have to use aloe vera, which is a water-based item, so then you have to put in preservatives, but I have found a preservative that is non-toxic, and I'm so excited about this face wash. I'll be doing that today after this podcast, and check it out at larsonbotanicals.com. Here's to a wonderful weekend. I hope you guys have a fabulous Saturday and a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next time.